This next tool I'm talking about is the Quick Selection tool. I'm actually going to talk about that second. Let's talk about the Magic Wand first. It's been around since forever in Photoshop, and it's always been a very cool tool because it does things very automatically. What it does, it looks for ranges of colors that are the same based on this number up here in the options bar called tolerance. It doesn't mean the number of colors, it's a range of colors. The higher the number you put, the greater the range of colors. So for example, if I set this number fairly low, and by the way, 32 is just a default setting, as I click on the sky, you'll see it selected a pretty good chunk of it because it's seeing mostly the same range of color. Whereas if I click down here, see all those little tiny gaps, it doesn't know what to do with this sidewalk because there's all these different colors. If I deselect it and put the tolerance much higher, see, it did a much better job, but it's still now it's getting a little too much. It's got part of her shoe, and that's always been the problem with the Magic Wand tool is sometimes it does a really good job. Like there, it looks like it's got the whole sky, but if I look a little closer, it looks like it got some other things as well. So the Magic Wand has always been kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes it works really well, other times not so much, and it takes a bit of practice with just guessing, frankly, what amount of tolerance should I use. It's still important to know how to use it, because if you do have a photo that's literally on a white background or a logo on a white background or something like that, the Magic Wand can actually work quite well because it becomes a one-click operation. But let's say I wanted to select my dancer here using the Magic Wand. Either way, if I tried to select the background, it would be very difficult to get it all in one piece. And if I select it on her, the chances again are it's just not going to work so well. So the Magic Wand, that's the theory behind it. Again, still a place for it, but honestly, it became way down the list of importance because of this tool, which is introduced in CS3, the Quick Selection tool. Now, one of the things that surprises people about this tool is when you look at the options in the options bar, all it's really giving you is how big a brush do you want, and a little checkbox called Auto Enhance. Well, let's make our brush a little bigger using the right bracket key, and you'll see all we're getting is this little circle with a plus sign in it. And if I go to the sky, I click and drag, and I click some more, and it's got the sky, got a little too much of her. But here's the interesting thing, unlike the Magic Wand, which wouldn't know what to do with all these different areas here, it's doing a pretty good job. Now, it's got a little too much here and there, but again, for a quick selection, it's pretty good. Surprisingly, as long as you have something that has some pretty good contrast between the area you're trying to select and the surrounding areas, like in this case, I wouldn't actually need to go and select the background around her because I can probably, just by dragging around, get a pretty decent selection of her. Now, as I get to areas that need a little more help, I'd probably zoom in. I'm just pressing Command or Control on the plus sign. And that tells me my brush is a little too big, so the left bracket key makes my brush smaller. Now you see it's selected a little too much, and we'll talk about this more later. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt to tell it I don't want those areas selected, and that lets me kind of fine-tune it to get just the parts that I want. Now even here at a certain point you'll find that it's going to select more than you want in some areas, and that's just the reality that we'll have to work with, the whole idea of ending up with a good selection. What the Quick Selection tool is not the greatest tool for is anything that has very fine detail. Like see how she has tiny little hairs here? That would not work very well with the Quick Selection tool. But if we zoom out and look at this, you can see, oops, we've got to get rid of this part in the middle here. There we go. Still need a bit of tweaking, but it's pretty darn good considering it was so fast. And honestly, this tool is become one of my favorite ones to try first because it is so quick. The name really suggests what it really does is a really quick tool. It works very well. And I wouldn't want to suggest that quick means sacrificing accuracy, because often it doesn't. It does a pretty good job. Having said that, if I were to look at another photo like this one that has all this detail of leaves, honestly, I wouldn't even bother trying the Quick Selection tool because there's just way too much detail in there. So at a certain point, you just have to say, what does it do a good job of? And if you think edges of contrast, if the person or the object that you're trying to select has some pretty good contrast around it, then it does a pretty good job. Certainly in our recurring theme here of ending up with a good selection by fine-tuning it, this is a pretty good start, considering it only took me a few seconds to do this. Now I would move on and tweak it and try and make it a little bit better. So when you open a document and you're faced with what tool should I start with, I would suggest that the quick selection tool is going to be pretty high at the list of your things to try first, simply because it is automatic and it does do a pretty darn good job.